right, we are back with a new episode, second episode of 2025, episode 9. This is the Move Worthy podcast with Jenny
and Lauren.
And we are going to talk about the listing process today. This has been on our list for a little while to talk about, but there were so many other things that were important.
Happening today.
Yes, happening now. And the listing process, can be a little tedious, maybe not too exciting, but we have some exciting new things to talk about that we get to share with our clients this year. So we will. So we're going to go through the listing process, what that looks like. From your first step would be to reach out to us, of course. Contact your realtor. And just ask the question, hey, what does it look like for me to sell this year? How is the process? What is the timing? What do I need to do in order to get my house listed and sold as quickly as possible?
Which can be so different depending on the time of the year and what's going on.
The one thing I think rings true is there is always at least a few properties pending.
Yeah.
And I say a few because I'm looking at St. Charles Parish.
Yeah.
When I open up my MLS every day, I look at St. Charles Parish only, usually, and then if I have clients and sellers in other areas, I kind of expand. But at least right now, in the last 7 days, we have a couple of houses that sold, we have a few that are pending, and we have some price reductions and some just listed. So there's always something moving. The speed at which they move
can change dramatically.
Can change from time to time throughout the year. And the process could look a little bit different.
Which leads agents to get very creative when they are, especially in a competitive situation where, a seller is interviewing multiple agents.
Yes.
They have to get creative they have to be in tune to what's happening in the market. They have to be aware of, the numbers, how things are moving, where they're going. And that can change the price point of the house.
Yes.
It can change the days on market. It can change a lot of things about it. So that, for sure, when buyers are meeting with agents and trying to choose an agent, that's definitely something that they should be listening for.
Yes.
Is the seller aware of what's happening? Do you truly feel like they, did their research, did their backup to present to you the best plan to sell your
house?
Yeah,
definitely. Definitely. That first step is usually going to look like a consultation. We get a phone call.
Yep.
We set an appointment, do a walkthrough of the property. We just, this past year, we have these amazing new booklets that we are giving to sellers and buyers that sign with us this year. It spells out the entire process.
Yep.
It shows you some of our, our track record, how we present our listings. We have pictures of our current and past and sold listings in there. It shows what we can do from a marketing standpoint.
Yes.
Super helpful.
How many platforms are these agents on, and are they getting the exposure that you would really need as a seller?
Right. And as you are in the middle of the process and you're hearing from us weekly with our communication about how things are going, you also have this book you can kind of open back up to and look at where we are in the process. You can find it in here. So that's another exciting thing that we have this year, along with some other neat options. But the consultation, do you measure at a consultation sometimes?
So no, what I do is if I go to meet with a potential listing, I'll give them my booklet. I'll let them look through it. While they're doing that, I will walk the property. Just look at the overall condition, just look at different things that, agents are typically prepared to look at. That way, I'm making myself aware more of what we're about to sit down and talk about. And then once I don't measure, but once I do that, I'll, sit down, discuss with them, what I can do for them and the listing process. And then I'll probably, based on the condition of the house, give them a range per square footage.
Right.
So price per square foot is kind of where I would be at. So no, while I wouldn't have a firm square footage, I could give them an idea of what that would look like. Most of them though will have a previous appraisal, or they'll have something. They've been listed before.
We kind of know what the size is.
So if they do have something right then and there, then I will use the square footage to help with the presentation for sure.
A lot of people ask, should I declutter?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like so many questions that people have, it really depends. It depends on what your clutter looks like.
Yep.
Sometimes.
That's why I like to do a brisk walk around the property right then and there before we start talking about anything. But because, there could be that one room that's stacked from floor to ceiling, wall to wall.
I've had that.
And you never knew that from just walking in the front door, you know? So, yeah, for sure.
Everybody's clutter looks different.
Yes, for sure.
I've had that. And I've had sellers who had no other option.
Yep.
And so that was the solution. Put it in one room.
Yep.
One room that doesn't have a bath that you have to walk to. One room that is just 4 walls and a closet and a window.
Yes.
And we've sold houses like that.
Absolutely.
It's just, at some point, I mean, our job is to work with the seller to do the best we can for them within the realm of what they can do too.
For sure.
So I think that's important, but I have that on my list. Like, that's the number one question. I feel like even a yard can be cluttered. I feel like cleaning up a yard for photos especially is huge. If there's one thing that I might say do aside from anything else is freshen up, declutter in the yard, the presentation. Even when people drive by and see your sign and then they look at the landscaping.
Yeah. Buyers will walk into a property and overlook a paint color. They'll walk into a property and they will overlook the granite top color or material. What they're not going to do is overlook a mess.
Yes.
If they cannot see beyond the mess, then there's no point in showing the property.
Right. And at that point, yes, declutter.
Declutter.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those depends. And that's why the consultation is so important.
Yeah.
Because while you might think you have to repaint your entire house, we might walk in and say, no. Just do this.
Right.
Do these few things. Maybe change a couple things, but definitely not. It's not as major work compared to what some people may or may not think.
And I think most sellers don't really realize that an agent can come in there and kind of tell you, look, hey, while you think you need to totally gut these kitchen and bathrooms and bring them completely up to date, an agent might say, hey, I think if you leave it like this, we could still sell it for this. And you might be the seller might be just comfortable with that price.
Right.
So yes, I think that consultations are huge when it comes to listing process.
Yes. And definitely, meet with more than one agent. A lot of people do. Some people don't. Some people get a vibe right away. It's kind of like when you walk into a house you want to buy. You kind of know when you get in.
Yep.
And I think some people probably feel that way about realtors. As soon as they meet the one that they end up working with, they know. But as far as the process goes, after the consultation and once a few things are done, we do paperwork. We sign listing agreements. Once the listing agreement is signed, we set up the photographer. We do professional photos. We do video. All those things are very important for marketing the property.
Professional photos is key.
Professional photos.
As an agent, just to pull up a listing and see some of the crap photography is really tough. It's really tough to see. What
kills me is the price point on some of the houses, and you see awful photos.
Yes.
I can't even, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, why
wouldn't you want to showcase this property and make it look...
From a realtor standpoint and from the seller standpoint, why would you allow this? I'll be very honest. When I first started, professional photography was just kind of coming around. Wasn't really big here just yet. And I had a very nice listing, and we did photos, or I did photos, and sent them to the seller, and they point blank said, no, like, we're going to redo this. And so I'm like, okay, let me go find who's doing professional photos around here. There was a company doing them, had them come out. I mean, it was a gorgeous home. Why wouldn't I have done it? But it just wasn't.
It wasn't.
It was just
part
starting.
Of the, yeah.
And I was, somewhat new agent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
it definitely makes a difference.
I never did photos ever again myself after that.
Yeah.
Unless it was, certain types of properties. Not all properties will require it.
Right.
Things that are gutted, things
or
that might need to be torn
down. Yes.
There's definitely
major fixer-uppers.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. Yeah.
But even on my rentals, I started doing, just because I relist these rentals over and over again.
That's how I do them on my rentals.
So I started doing them on rentals. It just showcases the property so much better. I feel like if you're not getting professional photos from your agent or on your
you're
house,
missing out.
Yes, you're definitely missing many opportunities because people are looking on Zillow and Realtor, and it's like
that's what's getting them to your house.
It's like Tinder for real estate. They're literally like swipe left or whichever way you have to do it. Like swipe up, swipe down, swipe left, swipe right. They're only looking once, and they're just flipping through them.
And if it's not catching their eye, they're done.
They're not opening it up.
Yeah.
They're not going to see how many bedrooms. They're not going to see. They don't even care about the price. They're looking at the photo first.
Yes.
It's got to get their attention.
For sure.
So that's huge, I think. After that, we list.
We list.
We show.
We market. Marketing is huge now in real estate, and we kind of talked about this on our last podcast about how technology has really stepped into real estate. For the most part, probably 90% of it is technology, and marketing, it falls right into that. So if agents are not on social media, if they're not on MLSs, if they're if those types of things aren't accessible, probably are missing out on something for sure.
I agree.
It's big, and it should be. And go look. You can look at these agents' history on Snapchat and
so
Facebook and
you can see Twitter. I'm everywhere.
No, Instagram. My God, I had like a brain fart. Instagram and Facebook are probably the two most sought after when it comes to
Listing.
that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
So definitely marketing is a huge part of the listing process for the agent as well as for the seller.
Absolutely.
Share your listings.
Yes.
Get it out to the people that you know.
When you see your agent share your listing on social media, you share it too.
Yeah.
Because you share it, then your friends are going to share it. Your family's going to share it.
That's right.
We've seen some listings literally go viral.
Yeah.
With, throughout Facebook, Instagram, some things on TikTok here and there. So absolutely. And it's not just a put your house in the MLS, put a sign in the yard and sell anymore. There's so much more to marketing real estate listings. It's not, we just don't do that anymore.
No.
Open houses. I mean, open houses kind of come and go. And right now I think they're important as ever.
And I think you see, when the market is less competitive, you see way more open houses.
You see way more open houses, absolutely. Because
when they don't have to open it up to show to possible perspectives, then that means it's probably an aggressive market and they're getting offers before they can even get that set up.
That's true. But I don't even like to wait, though, until things are slow on a listing. If we're going to list a house, I want to do an open house right away.
Yeah.
Like, create the excitement. It's a new listing. Get people in the door. Do as much as possible immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sometimes the markets are just slower.
Yeah.
And it just takes time. But I think that's important. I don't think all agents do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've gone through, well, like I said, it depends on the market. We've gone through ups and downs with the open houses, and right now is another time for that. So after that, let me bring up something real quick before we get to the rest, because the rest of this is going under contract, pending, and we all know that those are important steps because sometimes a seller needs to sell their home to buy another home.
Yeah.
Sometimes we know things can go crazy within the pending process. But I'm just going to shift and bring up this new product called NAF Cash.
Yes.
I'm really just kind of throwing it in there.
She's throwing it in there at me because I've been trained on this and certified on this.
Yes.
But I think it's a great thing to talk about. Sellers are selling for a reason. They could be selling because they could be selling because they want to buy their next dream home. They could be selling because they're moving out of state, downsizing, divorcing. There's all kinds of different reasons. And for the most part, there's options out there for every reason. If your job is transferring, there's relocation companies. Mm-hmm. If you are downsizing, there's smaller homes and plenty of them. But if you're selling your home because you already have a home of your dream that you want to buy, there are options now for sellers like that. And the program is actually called NAFCASH, and agents do have to be certified to work with this program and with this lender. And basically what they do is the lender comes in and buys the house of your dreams in cash. So it's crazy.
It's crazy.
They literally buy your house for cash, and then they give you 90 days to sell your old home. And during that 90 days, you're technically a tenant to them. You sign a lease agreement stating that you'll pay X amount of dollars in rent, and it's not unreasonable. I've looked at the graphs, I've looked at the prices. These are not unreasonable rent prices. Mm-hmm. They defer the first 90 days, and at day 90, if you're still in that property, you will have to pay those 90 days up. And if you have to continue beyond those 90 days, you can. But their goal is to get your other house sold within 90 days. So what happens after your existing house sells, you're already moved into your new home. You've started the rent process, but now it's time for what they call the buyback. So you start your lending process to put a mortgage on your new property. You can use the cash that you got out of the property that you sold to put into the new property. Or you don't have to. It really depends on what you qualify for. Because what they do is they qualify you for the new house in the beginning of the process. Mm-hmm. So before they even put a cash offer on your new property, they get you qualified and they say, hey, this is how much you can spend. This is what you have to put down. This is what it's going to look like. And they do all of that up front. So it's not blind territory for sure. And what's even better is this company pays all expenses except for inspections. So they pay the closing cost. They pay the taxes and insurances. They pay everything for the first closing when they put this cash offer in. You, as the buyer / seller, don't pay closing costs and escrows until you do your buyback. So you only pay one set of closing costs, one insurance, one tax. You don't do it twice. Oh, wow. However, it is two processes.
Right.
They do
a two-step process.
It's a two-step process.
Yeah.
They do charge a fee for this, like anything, but I think their biggest thing is most. It is a known fact that houses or buyers will accept a cash offer for up to 10% less than the listing price.
That's huge.
So if you're getting a house for 10% less than what it's listed for, their 1.5% fee that they charge you is nothing.
Oh, wow.
Nothing.
This is such a game changer, even for, how hard it is to sell a house and buy a house and do a closing back to back and have to move out.
You're moving in one day.
Yes.
Your moving truck is waiting in the title company's parking lot with your entire life in it.
You don't have to do that anymore. If you qualify for this, you can eliminate that miserable step. And I've done it so many times, and every time I have a seller who wants to do it, I just say, look, it's hard. It's not going to be easy. Mm-mm. It's doable.
But it's hard.
It's not fun. Whew. And not everybody wants to do a post-occupancy, pre-occupancy. I've gotten lucky with a few. I've gotten unlucky with some. Mm-hmm. It's just, this to me is the biggest part. And then not to mention I think the reason that they even came out with this was because of what we went through in 20 and 21.
Yes.
Is there were so many people wanting to make offers on properties,
but
still
they were
need to
getting
sell a
out.
house.
Well, not only they were getting outbidded,
Mm-hmm.
and they stood no chance without a cash offer.
Right.
I mean, you weren't getting anywhere without a cash offer,
And if you had a
or
predication,
$100,000 over, or a predication.
Right.
Absolutely.
So this eliminates that. So we ever get back into a position for a seller whenever
Yep.
offers are running rampant, houses are going fast, then you can literally make a cash offer, no predication, get the house of your dreams, and take your time moving in.
And you know what? What's great about it is that you don't even if people don't. Well, let's save that for the buying side of it. I'm not going to flip to the other side. We'll save that for the next podcast because there's a buyer side of NAV Cash that we can go into that has a lot of perks too. So, but we'll save that for the next one. But I do think that in the consultation, agents and sellers should be discussing what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it, what their end goal is, so that things like this can be offered.
And this, we could talk, like you said, we talk about this up front. In the beginning.
Absolutely.
Why do you need to sell?
Yeah.
That's where just listening to the client always comes into play.
Absolutely.
We have a little clip that we are going to share from the people who are offering NAV Cash. Mm-hmm. So we'll play that, and then we will finish up with this podcast.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Hey, Jenny, Scott over at New American Funding. Thanks so much for including me on your podcast to introduce our all cash buyer program, our NAV cash buyer program. This is an absolute game changer to the real estate market. Our NAV cash program allows your clients to submit all cash, non-predicated offers on the home of their dreams before they've even listed their home for sale. This is an absolute game changer to the real estate market. And this is not only going to save deals, this is going to create deals. Our all cash buyer program allows the client to technically put an offer, all cash, on the home of their dreams before they've even listed their home for sale. Love to chat with y'all more about it. Scott Finkley with New American Funding.
All right. So that was the intro, a little sneak peek into the NAV Cash. We'll talk about it again, like Lauren said, when we do our buyer process, which will be next week. So yes, to finish up the listing process, you go under contract. Mm-hmm. Buyer's going to have time to do inspections, and then a buyer may or may not ask for repairs during the inspection.
Yep.
This can be a somewhat, stressful period in the process, but everything, either it's going to work out or it's going to not.
Yeah.
People get really wrapped up in the inspection period, and it shouldn't be so scary of a thing. I mean, I think
I think it has a lot to do with the agents too. I think, that as an agent, we try to stay the calmest that we can, explain everything thoroughly, give past experiences or situations, so that they're hearing that what's going on is not abnormal. And it's not just happening to them, and of course, leave the drama out, and keep everything professional. It's
Absolutely.
A transaction. It's a transaction.
And look, and sometimes a buyer, they're going to get that inspection report. They might be first time buyers. They've never seen anything of this
like
before.
that. And it's overwhelming, a 65-page report telling you everything that's wrong with your house.
Little detail.
It's like, oh my God.
But look, a lot of the things are very typical. If there's something major, I always tell that to sellers. Look, if it's, typical easy fixes, then obviously, make those repairs. If it's something major, it could be another story. We deal with that when it comes. And even on a buyer side, again, having the experience, having been through so many inspections and being able to tell them, hey guys, this is not a huge deal. This is a huge deal. Like that's where I guess sometimes experience comes into play, and just letting the buyer decide, and then letting the seller decide. And when they ask for your advice, give the pros and cons, not necessarily your opinion, but as factual as possible, and that will get you through or not. And it's okay to cancel a contract. It's okay to say no. So, it just might not have been the right property, and the goal is not to force people into buying properties.
Right.
Or, I
The goal is for the seller and the buyer both to be comfortable with how the transaction went to the table.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yes, and to be happy at the closing table.
To be happy at the closing table.
And not want separate rooms.
Yes, which I've done before.
Which has happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it should be, I mean, I think we even say it in our booklet. It should be a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for everyone. You don't want to go into a process feeling forced or miserable or unhappy. So yes, inspections, it's a must. We do not usually skip that process, part of the process, and it's a give and take between buyer and seller. After the inspections, appraisal. You know,
Really?
right?
Not a whole lot you can argue about.
Really not a whole lot to say on appraisals. I have personally haven't seen a lot that have come back lower than sale price in a while, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
And then after the appraisal, it's usually like a week or two, and then you close.
You're closed.
You exchange the keys, you get your new home, you get rid of your past home, and you're either moving on to a new one or whatever that looks like. But that's basically the process in, 25 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's little details because, I mean, as everybody knows, a selling process is typically 6 to 8 weeks after you get out under contract, but then you have all of the time before you do. So in 25 minutes, we did wrap up what could be, a 6 month to a year long process.
Correct.
You know?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Right now, it's taking a little bit longer, it seems, but that could change in 2 weeks.
Yes.
As we've seen.
Yep.
So thanks for listening, and this was episode 9, the listing process, with a sneak peek of NAF Cash. We are the Move Worthy Podcast with myself, Jenny Lendle.
And Lauren Jones.
And together we have the experience to move you forward.